Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL.
7:37 on WMAL Morning Majority. Jim PETHOKOUKIS joins us now, money and politics columnist, Reuters Breaking Views, and CNBC contributor, Jimmy P, as we like to call him around here. Morning, Jim.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Man, I saw that you went to China, and I said I want to hear all about this trip. So tell us, how was the trip to China?
It was long and exhausting, and let me tell you, the interesting thing it's the little thing.
Right.
It's the little things that you take back. Mm-hmm. Like I'm touring the Forbidden City, and the guide's giving me his patter about this is where the Dowager Queen lived and this concubine, and the tour guide just turns to me because he knows I'm a journalist and whispers to me, "I believe in multi-party elections," and then goes back and right into the middle of his patter. Or I was having dinner in far northwest China with this Muslim family, and I had a couple of Communist Party minders with me.
Right.
And I'm talking, and a couple of other folks and I, we asked this. He's an older Muslim gentleman. He's 85, but he's been around China. He's been around the Middle East, but he's a Muslim, and Chinese are very worried about Muslim separatism among this Uyghur ethnic minority up there. So we asked this guy, what do you think of the killing of Bin Laden? And remember, we had two Communist Party guys in the room, and this older gentleman looks at me and says, "Who?
Really?
Never heard of him.
Wow.
What about terrorism? What is this terrorism thing you speak of?" You know what? It's a much freer country than it was 25, 30 years ago. But listen, it's an authoritarian country where civil liberties are impinged, and we shouldn't forget that.
Were you surprised at how they have adopted so many of the Western ways?
Listen, it's the only way to growth.
Yeah.
Listen, they have to feed a lot of people. They have to provide jobs for a lot of people. And remember, what they're currently doing isn't a lot. It really isn't what we're doing. I mean, they export a lot. They get a lot of foreign investment, which are building tons of bridges and apartment buildings and trains. But that can't last forever. And sort of the big question about China and China's economy: when can they switch from that model to something more where you have more of an entrepreneurial capitalism? And when will they make that switch? Can they make that switch? That's the big question. And when the current system is making a lot of people at the top a lot of money, the current system of both the economy and sort of the closed nature of the political system, it's going to be a hard change.
You know, I was there about 8 or 9 years ago, and there was a little McDonald's not too far from my hotel, and I went there a couple of times wanting some American food now and then, and somebody asked me, what's the difference between the McDonald's in Guangzhou and the McDonald's in America? I said, in the McDonald's in China, the kids speak better English than the McDonald's in Montgomery County where I live.
They also use really unhealthy oil for the French fries.
That's right.
Listen, if you're ever in China and you're at a buffet, you'll see that a lot of the items have both English words and also obviously the Chinese characters. If you come to a mystery dish that has just the Chinese characters, no English, do not open it.
Stay away.
No foodie adventurism there. Take their word for it.
Did you learn anything about the Chinese economy that you didn't know before your trip?
Well, that there has been a lot of talk how they're trying to move away from the exports because of all the conflict it causes in the United States. But listen, I don't think any of that's happened. What they're currently doing, which is using cheap labor and their artificially cheap currency, they're going to keep doing that, and they don't really care ultimately about the political impact because it's making people money in China. And let me tell you, they're focused very much on what we're doing. They understand our politics. Let me just say that I always ask them, like, what do you think of the president? What do you think of this guy? They were very, and these are like Chinese officials, they were very reluctant to give their opinions, except they hate Donald Trump's guts.
Really?
That was they were willing to offer an opinion on Donald Trump very specifically. They do not like Donald Trump. Everybody else, they kind of hedge their bets.
What is that all about?
Well, it's because he's been really tough on China in the last couple of months. Yeah.
I guess that's right.
Like a 25% tariff. So they were willing to offer an opinion on the Donald. And the second I started, as soon as I mentioned the word Donald, I didn't have to say the full word Trump.
Right.
They're sitting up in their chairs. And, getting angry.
Oh, that's interesting.
Speaking of folks who may or may not run for president in the presidential race, what do the last week's numbers and sort of the way things are changing mean for Obama's chances at re-election?
If the next, year and a half or whatever are like the last 5 months, let's just put it this way: the Republican nomination is something worth having. I think. Listen, the way things are going, we're going to be, and this is kind of like a muddling through. Listen, we might get a bad month like this. We might get a better month than another bad month. That's an economy that's kind of stuck. It's not generating a lot of jobs. It's not generating higher incomes. It's not generating GDP growth. What it's generating, I think, is a higher and higher level of anxiety for the White House reelection team. And it should. Listen, we're sitting with 8+% unemployment, flat wage growth, a housing market which, is going the wrong direction. That's tough to sell a Morning in America, vibe with those kind of numbers.
It would be very tough to, get any kind of support for another stimulus package. But what if you did it in a way where you say, let's go with tax cuts, because that's something the Republicans would get on board with. Does the president have the guts to go that way, to say, hey, it didn't work, stimulated by spending money, maybe we should, cut taxes and try to grow the revenue base that way?
I think what they're going to try to do is do like the old 3 yards and a cloud of dust, winning ugly.
Just plow through it.
They're going to raise a lot. They're going to raise a lot of money. Maybe they don't think much of the Republican field. They'll say, "Listen, I inherited a bad deal. Things are better than they were."
Right. It could have been worse.
I don't think they're going to suddenly adopt Reaganomics.
Right.
Well, I was just thinking that, is there anything else that they can do? I mean, QE3 doesn't look like that's going to happen again. There's no appetite for another stimulus package. What more can he do? Otherwise, we're just going to, more of the same, where we're just, maybe get 50,000 jobs added per month, which is not going to do anything for anyone.
150,000 jobs a month really isn't going to do any, and that's the problem. There's such a huge deficit in output, in jobs, and listen, the higher inflation, and even though Bernanke doesn't seem to care about gas prices and food prices, that is killing any sort of wage gains we've had from this very mild recovery. Listen, I would love to think that the president is so flexible that he's going to say, you know what, we need to like get rid of capital gains taxes.
Yeah.
We need to do. Boy, I would love to believe that.
All right, Jimmy. Good to have you on the program as always, and glad you're safely back from China.
Great talking to you.
All right, Jim PETHOKOUKIS, money and politics columnist, Reuters, and CNBC contributor here on the